Thank you, Professor. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm very honored to be here to share my story with you. I can't really tell you my story without first telling you a little bit about my parents. They married very young. My mom was only 15 and my dad was 18. They married because my mom was pregnant with my older brother. They weren't ready to become parents, but they did the best they could, as a lot of people do. My dad had had some problems in his youth and was sent to what was in those days called a reform school. Some of you that are a little older might remember that. It was a rough place, and my dad had to become tough in order to survive. He learned how to fight, how to play pool, and how to become a hustler. For the majority of his life, he remained a hustler and was in and out of prison many times. During the long stretches of time between each incarceration, he found it difficult to find jobs because of his criminal record. He decided it would be best for him to own his own business, so he became a bar owner. Sadly, in the bar business, though, associations can be made which can lead to illegal activities. He quickly realized that he could make more money selling drugs that his customers used than he could from the actual bar business. At first, he began selling joints or marijuana cigarettes for people that aren't familiar with what that is. I remember once when I was 13 and my older brother Jeff was 18, my daddy came in the kitchen with a big old black hefty trash bag full of marijuana, threw it on the kitchen table and told me and my brother to start rolling. My brother taught me how to roll, and that was the first time I ever smoked pot, and boy did I think I was cool. I was sitting there smoking pot with my older brother who was my idol, and then it wasn't long I started smoking pot with my dad. But we had a good time, but I didn't realize at the time that was a dysfunctional home environment. Not too long after the marijuana sales started, my dad also started selling cocaine. It was the 80s and everyone that we knew was doing it. And I grew up thinking that it was perfectly normal to have drugs in the house. And in addition to selling drugs, my dad also gambled a lot. He would place bets on sporting events with bookies in Las Vegas and Atlantic City. And he also hosted high-stakes poker games at our home. Many nights I went to sleep with a kitchen full of poker players and woke up with them still there the next morning. As I passed by the kitchen table on my way to school, some of the players would pat me on the head and hand me a 20. When my dad inevitably got caught and was sentenced to prison, he had me bring him drugs so that he could sell them on the inside. He would pay a mule to smuggle the drugs from the visitation area into the general population. Considering my childhood, I guess it was no surprise that I'd end up in prison myself one day. My drug use continued and escalated until one day I must have taken too much or gotten hold of something bad, because I really do believe that I lost my mind for a period of time. The lines between right and wrong ceased to exist, and I participated in some armed robberies and burglaries in my desperation to get more money for drugs. At the time of my arrest, I had 3 young children, and much to my dismay, I learned from the jail staff that I was pregnant with my 4th. When I came down off the drugs and realized what I had done, and that I had also put my unborn child at risk, I felt like the lowest scum of the earth. I sunk into the deepest depression imaginable and decided that any punishment they gave me would be too good for my sorry tale. When they told me that my co-defendant had thrown me under the bus and said I was the mastermind, I didn't care. When they placed warrants in front of me, I signed every one of them. I pled guilty to things I didn't even do because I didn't care what happened to me. I felt like my family and my beloved children would be better off without me, and I just wanted to go away forever. I was sentenced to 30 years in prison not long after giving birth to my youngest son. I got to keep him in the hospital for 3 days before giving him to my mom. I didn't see him again until he was a year old. God bless my sweet mama. She took all 4 of my children and raised them as her own. Things weren't easy for her either. She was 51 years old, and I left her with an 8-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn infant. My poor old mama had 3 in diapers at one time.
That's it.
As you might can imagine, she was not very happy with me. She was hurt, disappointed, angry, ashamed, but she still loved me enough to take my kids and keep them from being taken by the state. And I'll forever be grateful to her for that. She ended up adopting my kids because that was the only way that she could get more help for them. My dad was also in prison during this time, so my mom was all alone in raising my kids. When she adopted them, she promised that I'd always be their mommy and she'd bring them to see me. But sadly, she wasn't able to keep her word on that. She had it so hard that she wasn't able to bring my children to see me very often. When I called home as often as I could, the calls were limited to 15 minutes each, and my mom couldn't afford to pay for very many of them. I wrote countless letters, but they mostly remained unopened and unread. And when I'd ask my mom if the kids had read my letters, she'd say, "Well, they're on the living room table in there, Jada, if they want to read them." I'm not really sure why my mom didn't encourage the kids to take more of an interest in me, but I can't be upset with her because she did the best that she could. And she did the best thing she ever could have done for me by taking care of them. That's the only way I was able to do my time, was taking comfort in the knowledge that my kids weren't hungry or cold or being abused. My hope of one day being reunited with them was what kept me going all those years. During that time, I matured and realized that relationships are what's most important in life. First, my relationship with my higher power, my Creator, and then my relationship with my loved ones who He gave me. The ladies on the inside with me also became a surrogate family of sorts. I couldn't be a mother to my kids, but I could be to some of the young ladies on the inside that needed one. Prison is a harsh environment with very little empathy shown by the staff. The inmates only have each other to offer comfort, encouragement, and assistance during illness. I believe I would have died if it weren't for my fellow inmates. The lack of adequate medical care is shocking. I'm in a wheelchair right now because my chronic conditions were allowed to progress with very little treatment. Right now, I need a fusion in my neck, a rod in my spine, both shoulders and both knees replaced. If I get all the surgeries that the doctors tell me I need, I'll be the new bionic woman. I know I look a lot older, but I'm only 57 years old. I served 25 years and 8 months in prison. I was 29 when I went in and 55 when I got out. I've been out for a little over 2 years now, and I've been hospitalized 5 times. The doctors who've treated me ever since my release always ask me, how did you get in such terrible shape? And that's when I have no choice but to tell them I did 25 years in prison. And down to the last one, every doctor has said that explains it. This is something that shouldn't be. I'm almost certain, as I look around this room at the faces of all you nice people, I'm almost certain that every one of you would agree that yes, people who break the law deserve to be punished, but they also deserve to be treated humanely. And that doesn't happen in the South Carolina Department of Corrections. I'm sure that if you were in a similar situation, if something happened and you happen to have a wreck and somebody was accidentally killed, I mean, you can get in trouble without planning to commit a crime. But if something happened like that to you and you were sentenced to prison, I believe that everybody would hope that they would be treated humanely. But consider this. All it takes is being with someone who commits a crime. South Carolina sentences people to prison under a theory called the hand of one is the hand of all. And everybody, you need to be careful of the company that you keep. I want to speak to young people and warn them of the dangers of not considering consequences, the consequences of their actions. I want to do something to help people that were in a similar situation as myself when I was at a crossroads. In the 2 years since my release, I've endured many struggles with my health, but I've also endured discrimination in finding suitable housing. And even if I weren't disabled, it would be very difficult for me to find a job because virtually no one wants to hire a convicted felon. The deck against a returning citizen is stacked against them. And that is also something that shouldn't be. If we want to try to build a better life and don't want to return to prison, shouldn't society help us instead of hinder us? In addition to my health struggles, I've also struggled with trying to build a relationship with my children. They didn't know me growing up. My mother was their mother, and I can't just step into that role all these years later, nor would I want to. My mother showed them a mother's love, and I would never try to take her place. My entire immediate family died while I was in prison. My kids and I are the only family we have left. I'm thankful that they're giving me a second chance to be a part of their lives, and I'm thrilled and honored by the fact that 2 of my sons are here with me tonight. Aside from my children, and now I also have grandchildren, my mission in life is to advocate for prison reform. I spent half my life in prison, and those people are my family too. I'm still doing time in a sense because there are so many people I love who are suffering behind those razor wire fences. Many of them have no hope of ever getting out, and I'm not going to abandon them. They've lost enough, paid enough, and suffered enough, and I have to try to do something to help them. It is my hope that by sharing my story tonight, it will give everyone pause to consider this mostly forgotten population and be inspired to do something to help them receive the humane treatment that every human being deserves. Thank you.